Chapter 74. Watching someone die was awful. And it was worse when you didn't know them, only knew that the unique noises being ground out from under them would only be heard by the crew of the tank whose treads were steamrolling over them as they desperately tried to come to a stop, and then no one else. But living was even worse, because you grew used to it. After a while, you started to wonder if there was ever any end to it, and that, she had decided, was part and parcel of understanding the world. Not giving up on it, exactly, but coping, and dealing, and adjusting. Slicing away the little parts of yourself you didn't like until there was something pleasing to the eye for others to take strength from. And perhaps that wouldn't have been a pleasant way to live, but it would have been enough. If only. How cold the smog had felt on her skin that night. All the fake suns, electric and blue, ran their lights down on her back as if judging her for something. Everybody else had been understanding. The crew, the hospital staff. But she couldn't. Hey! The voice had come from one of the many narrow alleyways that led nowhere, a result of the collapse of urban planning. Wide streets had been built for the easy transport of troops, but there were no longer enemies to fight, just ruins and roads that went nowhere. And darkness clung to that alley, like. She had felt her thick eyebrows knit together, could still remember how it had seemed like something out of a bad tape from the old days, and how she had been just a little pissed. That was her first thought, but it was the first time the edge had taken itself off her shoulders. Of course, she responded the only way she knew how. Hey-oh! The silence was soul-crushing, in a different way, and she could feel her shoulders sink in on herself, broad and gangly. Well, if it was some kind of hidden psycho-killer, at least they had put her out of her misery. Hey! Oh! Hey! Let me help you! And anyone else would have ran, probably. Or fought or blinked or froze in the electric light, but she had seen the strange, grey skin tone of the stranger, her weird clothes that looked old world and old time, and it had seemed like something out of a book, and that had been hook enough for her. I'll take care of it. And I can probably help you hobble along, too. But I need help. I need someone who'll carry me along far enough that I can meet someone. Apologize to them, maybe. Maybe hear them apologize. And it was just her way. That she smiled, without thinking. Saying that she'd be glad to help. Wow! Did you see that pillar of horrible world-destroying nothingness explode on the horizon? I don't think we're gonna make it, wahahaha. Somehow, Koza knew whatever had happened, she had lost her chance. The little voice that had kept her alive even after being hit by artillery fire, drowned in the sea, and so many other little unpleasantnesses. She was gone, and the loneliness felt oddly depressing. Or would have, if her best friend ever wasn't perched on her head. We're gonna make it. There can't be that much more time, right? And then maybe a portal'll open up and you can just hope right back through it. Koza held up her slightly scratched hands, Boleslava's tiny limbs, and they sort of high-fived. Paul, who had been looking as if he had swallowed a gnat for most of the conversation, just shook his head. I'll never understand playing weird games with your pets while the world dies. Must be an accounting thing, Tanya is fine. It's a stupid name, but beggars can't be choosers. Sniffing, Paul rubbed where his glasses had bit into his nose from worry and exhaustion. You know, that's not even close to true. I could change my name to Paulus or something, nobody'd care. I'd care, because Paulus is an awful name, but... Tanya smiled, exposing her off-color teeth. Hey! My parents gave it to me, and I love em. Real women love their parents, right, Boleslava? Boleslava hopped down to the table, accidentally drop-kicking the latest of a small series of figures Lorelei had set out for Ruslana's eventual return. Nobody bothered to set them back up, because it was far more entertaining to just watch the tiny pink creature walk back and forth with as serious a look on her eyes as any might hope to have.
No. Well, yes. But it should be earned. If your parents were really bad. Pretty great, I think. Maybe the greatest. Ahahaha. Okay, then, obviously the answer is yes. But love is really precious. It should be something you want to share with people, I think. That makes you and them happy.
Binky had begun to very carefully repair the damage to the mostly neglected war table. His huge hands were clumsy, but so patient and gentle was his touch that before long, it looked almost as useful as it had before Boleslava attacked it in the first place.
I think love is nice. I don't understand why the world can't have more love. Maybe that's what's hurting it.
Paul shook his head vigorously, so much that his glasses threatened to loose themselves and fly off into the air.
No, my friend. Can't be. Love can cause a lot of things. But it can't cause tectonic plates to shift.
He sounded so proud. Tanya wiped a metaphorical tear from her eye, but just the one.
As horrible as it is though, I've been thinking, I don't really mind dying like this. I'm out of stock to move, all the noodles I could sell have sold, and I'm with people I enjoy spending time with. If the world's going to die. Well, sure, I feel bad I couldn't do more for it, but it could be worse. Could be people blaming it on bad luck and magic.
He rolled his eyes, a hint of the familiar, slightly smug smile playing at the corner of his face. Binky paused thoughtfully, having lined up a small tower of empty soda cans.
You'll all make it. Binky knows. But...
His giant eye wobbled, his shoulders shook. The green Cyclops wasn't crying just yet, but who wouldn't cry when they thought about a future without friends? Where the world might end, ripping them apart in the process, even if they'd be alright later, somehow? Magically. How terribly fucking unjust. She pursed her lips, wrapped her fingers against her leg. And now she was alone, and there wasn't really any hope. She had been prevented from taking out that old guy when the chance had presented itself, because of course he was the one Ms. Moth had been seeking. Now that didn't matter. Binky had put so much effort into the little can tower, too. It was really cute. Was it stupid that she wanted to protect cute things? Was that a terrible reason to preserve the status quo? Was it the best reason? Her eyes shut, her lips pursed further, and she might have thought until there was nothing left to think if Boleslava hadn't, carefully, not wanting to disrupt either the tower of cans or the refurbished war table, wobbled over and gently pried her eyelids open.
I know that's not really sad, but you probably shouldn't think too much if there's nothing you can do. It's okay to just vent for a while.
Sighing, Tanya fell forward, cradling her small, pastel pink friend. Boleslava was an incredibly comfortable pillow, but it felt a little cruel to rest her noggin against something so small for more than a little while. And anyway, humans didn't need much sleep to operate, right?
Nobody ever really benefits from venting. It just makes things seem more controllable for a little while. I'd rather just relax with some stories or something, maybe a little light music, interpretive dance.
Ugh, she sounded stupid again. It was fine because Paul had snickered and Boleslava had done a very cute little sort of shimmy, but, again, it was just another one of her malapropisms that sounded so much worse out loud. Who would dance while the world shot pillars of nothingness through the sky, dragons fought and whatever else was going on out there? Boleslava waddled over and fixed her with a very serious stare, and finally Tanya conceded defeat. You just couldn't out-stare Boleslava, after all.
Are you going to ask that untrustworthy guy for help? Because he hasn't really been very helpful so far. Blue's been incredibly helpful. He gave me a cool pseudonym and a constant supply of useful information. And I don't know why you think he's so untrustworthy, I mean, who couldn't trust a face like that?
Paul had brought over some more empty cans for Binky to arrange. The empty can tower was slowly becoming a very lifelike model of district. Several of the Boulder folk had rolled over and were placing themselves around it to recreate the terrain. She kind of wished she could paint it, or ask Zhao to. He was probably dead. Depressing to think about. That's better.
I think. Maybe you should think just a little more carefully.
Boleslava cautioned gently, and though it was very hard to notice the tiny sheen of sweat on her tiny little form, it was definitely there. The Herculean effort to not say anything indelicate was appreciated, but she was fine. Tanya felt well and truly fine, and that was the weirdest part of it. She had spent so much time here, so much of it wasted because it felt like this might last forever. She could just wait and wait and wait and the world would still turn, the island would still exist. But suddenly had come this end, and that would be it.
HRRRRRRMN. No. Not that carefully. You'll sprain your brain muscles. Not that I like arguing with weird talking pets, but the brain is an organ, not a muscle. I mean, the distance to us lay folk is pretty semantic, but you never know when it'll show up on a crossword or something.
Paul added helpfully, and Boleslava turned to face him with a slightly confused look glittering in her white eyes.
Oh. I wonder if my brain is really huge then.
Caught in sudden existential crisis, Boleslava soon joined her in looking very pensive about nothing in particular. Truly, they were kin. The thought made her smile, a nice, genuine smile. The kind she had missed having. And there it was, after all this time. The spark of an idea, just desperate enough to be fun, just dumb enough to work.
All right, what if? And here's a what if, but bear with me. What if we tried rocketing up into the stars to see if that moon base is still running?
Binky frowned.
Don't think. There's actually a moon base. Sorry.
Paul, however, was feverishly buffing his glasses.
Right. All we'd have to do is find a rocket, a source of high-energy fuel, maybe some unused space elevator or something, hide up there until the island gets sucked into whatever positively horrifying black hole is popping up inside of it, and then eventually, after a few thousand millennia maybe it'll start spitting things back out again.
Binky frowned further, having paused his construction efforts to place both huge hands against one another.
Binky isn't very smart, but that sounds a little.
And he coughed just a little, just quietly enough that it was kind of cute, too. She approved, even if she didn't fancy the idea of rejecting plan, build a rocket and go to the stars.
Fine. Preposterous it may be, but we won't get anywhere without spitballing a few preposterous ideas. The Eternal City wasn't built in a day, and it certainly wasn't sacked multiple times in a single day. Or maybe it was, I slept through most history tuitions.
There was nothing to be proud of, but she and Paul exchanged knowing looks and a high five. For truly, there was no nation like procrastination. She did love history, but, wait.
Actually, go back a few steps. Let's say we just wait it out, and through an act of multiple providences, whomever's still alive is picked up and sent back home. And whatever happens to all of you.
She frowned for a minute, ever glad that Boleslava quietly helped. And she had missed that, but not as much as Boleslava herself. And she'd never see Boleslava again. And dreams were liars, and she.
It happens. Nothing is a vacuum, right? Nothing happens in a void. We'll take these memories with us, even if we forget them in time. Right, Paul?
Hey. Paul had a strange expression on his face, and quickly looked away.
Sure. Going back home. Well, I'm sure you're right about vacuums or whatever.
Unusually subdued. Her expression clouded further, but now wasn't the time for ruminating over his moodiness. Maybe it was just the thought of never selling noodles to another islander, that'd get her kind of depressed, too.
Who's to say we can't get back?
Boleslava frowned deeply, so much so that the effort of it nearly crisscrossed her tiny form. She placed a tiny limb of pink against Tanya's arm, but the fire in the stranger's eyes refused to leave her, so determined she was.
Maybe, you're looking at this the wrong way. Maybe it's okay to let things just be as they are.
And maybe she was angry at that idea, and refused to accept it. Maybe too many times, things had just been that way, and it seemed like the way people disappeared after they had created so many memories was. But she didn't have any energy to be angry, either. Just exhaustion and uncertainties and tiny, lingering hopes in the kindness of a tiny pink friend and a large moss-green cyclops she had never got a chance to truly wander around with. But that hope was enough to try, wasn't it? Enough to dream? Enough to... Her grasping at answers that weren't going to happen was cut short by the crash as the room was absolutely packed with people. Lorelei just kind of was there because that's how witches were, followed shortly by a very humiliated-looking Grendolf, followed not long after by Leo and his nice friends, hobbling down the ladder.
Okay. We're gonna save the world.
And with this sunny proclamation, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, hope had been right to hold on to after all. Even if she knew, could feel it in her heart that the worlds they wanted to save were not the same.
Everyone. It seems like everybody is okay, so please don't worry. I'm going to help guard their return in a few moments, but thanks to Leopold, we've got a plan.
Leopold chortled and curtly bowed his head. Lorelei smiled at him, but she was alone in this. Still, it was good to see, at least. They'd be all right. Everyone'd be all right. Her fists tightened, even as her smile widened.
Neat. So, what's the plan? Hopefully there's something I can do to help. Hate just sitting here, marking time and feeling useless, haha.
Lorelei placed her hat against the table, perhaps to the young woman it was a ceremonial gesture, she seemed older, Tanya felt. More secure with herself, and more certain. It was pleasant to see, and she'd miss that, too. Because even assuming the old world wasn't uninhabitable, or other matters didn't arise, they'd part ways. Everyone always did. But in the moment, it was nice. She felt a little envious, mostly proud, though. Maybe a little melancholic, not enough to bother Boleslava about.
Well, there's plenty of stuff to do, but mostly it'd be great if everyone just packed their bags and sat tight. We might need a runway, though. It'd be nice if Lazarus had a place to rest for a while. He's not doing so well.
Well. She wasn't the only one who really wanted to know why they were working with the hell-spewing Earth Dragon, but he probably wasn't such a bad guy, that was the way this island was, after all. Still, a runway? And hey.
Well, what about Dragunov? I mean, I'm not sure he's really sane, but if we're doing a favor for Lazarus, it might be nice to go whole hog, right?
She had half been joking, but Lorelei beamed at her.
That's a great idea, Ms. Koza. Of course, that just means there's more to do, while the weather might vaporize us in an instant. I really wish magic was useful for more than just exploding things in a pretty manner.
Hey. Ms. It sounded kind of cool, so cool that she didn't really feel like correcting her. Yeah. Ms. Koza. If Chow's old teacher was alive, maybe she could look into becoming a teacher, too. Ms. Koza, who taught history and didn't even care if you slept through it. Well, that actually sounded more and more awful the more she thought about it, and grinning like an idiot wasn't contributing meaningfully to the discussion. Still.
It is, but usually with a great deal of time to it. Your teacher has a very powerful spell, for example, it takes a great deal of preparation to use. To reshape the land. Cough, cough.
Grendolf enunciated the rattling hack of his own graveyard-tinged coughing, and it sounded like it. His bones had all been set out of order, and though the magic binding him together was much more primeval and powerful than whatever kept bones in place. Man, it seems he had really taken a beating.
Think you'll go? It won't be a problem. Help would be nice though. I'm on it.
She offered, once again, without thinking. But hey, sometimes thinking too much, just.
I'm on it, too.
Chirped Boleslava, jumping on her head. Tanya posed dramatically, one hand to her hip and the other raised skyward, and Boleslava copied it with incredible finesse. Yes. Not long afterwards, after making sure there was nothing in risk of being knocked over, Binky copied them as well. Yes.
Well, that's great. If anyone else'd like to help.
The room went silent at Lorelei's gentle, firm request. Mr. Mammon had quietly excused himself to go stare meaningfully at the arcades, and Paul soon joined him. Grendolf was in no position to do anything physical, and Leo was Leo. Well, fine, their team was great just the way it was.
Honestly. It falls to me to fix everything, as per usual. Such is the curse of the beautiful elite. Dear Mammon, if you haven't actually begun playing and managed some high score or another upon my return, I shall be sorely disappointed.
Crimsolino's chiding was a lot gentler than she had expected. But then, harpies were complicated birds, especially when they were also duchesses. And it seemed that this duchess and that demon had a pretty good friendship, didn't they?
Besides, you'll probably need someone who has an idea of flight to understand the idea of wingspan and the like. It would be truly awful for Great Lazarus to land and then crash. If we died so anticlimatically, I should never forgive myself.
Her squawking laughter was infectious, and soon Tanya was laughing as well. Then, she was rolling up her sleeves, and adjusting her tie, and trying to look more spirited than she felt, but she kind of was feeling it. You might die. This might be it. One way or another it will be it, be an end to the happiest you've ever felt. Are you all right with that? Truly all right with that? And she didn't know the answer, not really. Maybe there wasn't an answer, really. But damned if she wasn't going to try. Outside, the weather had begun to hail like in seasons so long past, huge chunks of falling sky, mixed with mirrored shards of funky crystal that reflected them in every slicing, biting fragment. Some found home, and ripped and tore and sent little bits of blood and effluvia everywhere. Terrifying. But she could feel the blood flowing and pumping and felt alive, not waterlogged and muzzy-headed. The grey slurry around them was pulsating and broiling like some sort of really horrifying soup, and she had a good feeling that if they stood in it too long.
Okay. Binky thinks that we should put down trees to make a path. Then, the nice dragons can land on the trees and not sticky slime. Okay.
Binky yelled above the howling, electrical screeching of the sky. Electrical screeching? Hey. It really did sound electrical, almost like someone had left a machine half-plugged into a socket and it was howling in agony. They were actually physically here, she was pretty sure, but maybe part of the problem was whatever machinery kept them here finally wearing out.
Great. Count on me to fell you haul We'll be over this in no time.
And that turned out to be a lie. Boleslava had to spend her time under her jacket, but was a comforting presence all the same. Crimsolino had learned to fight against the wind and then ride it when it, or maybe the gravity itself, fluctuating at some unseen hand. Possibly the machinations of a moon base? Regardless, she knew when to work with it, not against it. She didn't talk so much, but whenever her fire lit up the sky, Tanya knew it was time to run like the dickens. Trees fell and sometimes splintered in mid-air, and then the wood turned into spheres that sort of saw things out. And exploded. Lorelei had left not long after they had started. Then Grendolf had left, still looking the worse for wear, and that was worrisome. But they chopped and slogged and kept at it until Binky's green skin was covered with grey muck, and her jacket was stained and her hair was stained and worst of all her tie was stained, and there was no way she was going to clean it before she left, and that was definitely the worst part. And it was then that she realized, without a doubt, that they weren't going to make it. Not with this small force, not alone. And maybe the great dragons weren't even necessary to this plan, maybe Lorelei just wanted to do something nice for them, who had suffered such a huge and perhaps pointless rivalry. But one Cyclops, one cute pink puffball, one legendary Lassie's fair teacher, Ms. Koza, and one Duchess/Harpy weren't going to huff it. Ha! Ha ha ha! And her hand felt grey and corroded over her face. Her fingers were covered with the gunk, after all, where the rain hadn't ripped into them. Rain? Hail? Strips of crystal? Did it matter? She kept laughing, and knelt down to the ground. Boleslava was frantically trying to erase her memories, but hey, it was fine. She didn't feel sad. She didn't really feel anything at all.
Well, I'm out, everyone. I've really loved this. Loved all of you. I'm sorry I guess it was too much, to hope.
Binky had fallen into the sludge, but managed to pull himself free, ignoring the shallow lacerations that were all over him, too. He couldn't run, but was halfway to her before the horrible crunch of Crimsolino plummeting to the ground filled the air. And Binky paused, not knowing who to turn to first, and his howling filled the air as he fell, too, legs overrun by the clinging tar. She would have killed for a smoke.
Boleslava, you don't have to pull my hair. I'm pretty much done for. Why not use my tie as a scarf or something? You can kill the world what killed me. Be my cute avenger.
Her words felt a little hollow, but it didn't matter. Boleslava wasn't affected by the stuff, maybe she was too small or too light, but she wouldn't stop trying. Why? Why wouldn't she just run? Save herself. They were all. And that was when Boleslava started to sing. She didn't sing well. She was too small, too chirpy, too tiny to even be heard against the background static that drowned her out. Whatever she was singing, she didn't know the words to it, either. It sounded like a fragment that maybe she had sung with others, long ago. But, it was beautiful, and even though it only lasted a moment, Tanya realized she was crying. Was this stuff really just quick dry cement? And what the hay was that drilling sound? More importantly, what was that other sound? Whatever it was, it refused to be ignored, drowning out the dying static of the world with an incredibly catchy, amenably vapid chorus that filled the heart with hope, and made it go doki doki. The ground exploded around them, destroying all their hard work and causing the solvent sludge to collapse as they fell into the safely waiting hands of a veritable legion of demons, some in various states of unfamiliar costumery. They looked rather miserable. And, standing atop a custom-built velocipede, buffing his darkened sunglasses.
Yo, cannibal. Where's Lorelei? Also. Need a hand.
Chapter end.